I want to shout out my girlfriend, because leading up to this event, I was practicing. I was practicing my hard out probably for the last 3 months straight, and she kind of carried at home. So I just want to shout her out because I kind of planned to do this after I advanced, and then I threw both times. So I figured let's at least do it here.
Yeah.
So shout out to my girlfriend. Shout out also to my team, obviously, for supporting me throughout. I really appreciate it.
Hey, SE Historian here. Today we have one of the few longer form pieces I was able to film at the Esports World Cup in Riyadh, and it's with the German Zerg, Lambo. Julian and I had a lovely chat where we discussed what separates highly skilled StarCraft players from the very best, his thoughts on the future of the SC2 community, and a lot more. If you love StarCraft and you want to keep hearing from the biggest names in our community, support my channel by subscribing, leaving a like, and your thoughts in the comments down below. If you really want to see my channel grow, consider supporting me on Patreon. The link is in the video description. With that out of the way, let's jump in to My Word with Shopify Rebellion's Lambo. Okay, so Lambo, thank you so much for taking the time today, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. I'm happy to be here.
So how was your trip over to Riyadh?
My trip was pretty chill, yeah. I went, I think, through Qatar. And if you're talking more about how I qualified, then it was a bit more rocky.
yeah. Fair enough. I think people were really looking forward to your games, especially against Gabe. You were, vocal on Twitter about your, being upset about the Cyclone bug. That seemed to play a role within the series. Do you think the bug has a really significant impact on the outcome of the tournament?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think Terrans even just simply play a different style because the bug exists. I think Mac was pretty decent back then, when the Cyclone was in the iteration it's supposed to be in right now. But the Ghost has since went up one supply, so theoretically it's a bit weaker. But with the bug, it's even stronger, especially in mid-game. So I definitely do think it plays a role. I literally think that it changed the outcomes of my games. Most likely, like there's probably 100 plus extra lock-ons that he got. And in the Rainer versus Maru series, which Rainer is now eliminated, he had to play against Serral in the round of 8 because he lost to Maru. He also lost against him where Maru played Mech 4 times. So obviously it changes the outcome. Cure used it as well against
very heavily, yeah.
Yeah, like every Terran uses it. I think the Terrans also were kind of hiding it a bit leading up to the tournament, so everybody was like, okay, how bad is this really? But I could tell you beforehand that this was really bad. I think maybe they could have patched it a week ago or so when they lifted the upload bug.
Yeah.
Like they changed that, but at that point I can understand why the tournament organizer doesn't want to do that for the Terrans.
So
because
close.
if the Terrans are practicing mech the entire time leading up to the event, it would be really shitty for them, but now it obviously still stinks for us because it's not supposed to work that way.
Yeah.
It's better than it's supposed to be.
Of course.
Yeah, it's different if this number was in the actual game itself, in the patch notes.
I do also agree that I think a lot of players were not showing it because they didn't want to exacerbate the community focus on it.
Yes,
Because I have been questioning it for a few months now, why we're not seeing more Cyclone builds. Like, why are you not abusing this bug, right? Like, if no one's going to fix it. I mean, it's such a tricky situation, especially with the state of Blizzard. I guess we have no idea if they're actually going to address this ever.
I think, or at least I hope they do, but even if they don't, the moment we can upload stuff again, tournament organizers can upload mods at least where it's fixed. They just didn't want to do it because it was not possible to upload these mods, sadly.
Unfortunate, but I guess we are where we are. Taking the clock back to outside of current events, how'd you get started with gaming? What got you so interested in games?
I loved gaming when I grew up. I think the first time I was gaming was at my grandpa's place. It was Prince of Persia. He's Persian, so
PlayStation 1?
No, it's a PC. It's
Okay.
Very original. The game also was in Persian, so I had to ask him sometimes for what this means and stuff. So that was fun. And then I always loved playing with my friends in elementary school, and then also my bigger sister. She had a N64, which I ended up getting from her afterwards. So that was like my entrance to gaming. It was always just fun games with friends. Like Smash Bros, Mario Kart, a lot of FIFA. Then eventually, when I grew older, it would become like Call of Duty with friends, Battlefield with friends. And eventually, I got my first own PC. And how I got into StarCraft was basically I saw a PC magazine on the toilet of my friend's place where I was having a sleepover, and I saw we were playing Metal Gear Solid 3. So we were trying to play it throughout the entire weekend to finish the entire game. And I saw in a magazine that StarCraft 2 was voted super highly. Like it was like a score of 92 or 94 or something. So I figured I'd try out the game, and that's how I got to StarCraft eventually.
See, it's funny, man. Smartphones changed everything, because if you had a phone, you never would have looked at the magazine, right?
Probably not. You're right.
At your phone.
I would have never found StarCraft, not gonna lie. I would have just played Call of Duty, yeah.
Yeah, maybe be a Call of Duty pro at the venue across the street.
I don't think so, because I only even realized that StarCraft was or esports was a thing through StarCraft. I didn't even know that existed. Otherwise, maybe I would have been Smash Bros. Pro.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's different being the best like within your friends group and then having an online competitive game with a ranking system. That was huge for me.
Your heart just calls out for games with no developer support.
I guess so. I mean, yeah, Smash Bros. Might not also be the best pick, I guess, in that sense. But
So, when it comes to StarCraft, what was the moment, like, what made you feel like, okay, pro gaming is the thing for me, I want to pursue this?
For me, StarCraft is just, I'm a super competitive person, so I always want to get better. And in StarCraft, no matter how much you practice, there's always stuff that you do wrong. And it's very obvious. Like right after the game, I realized, okay, I did that poorly, and I just want to do it better. So it's like the constant thrive for improvement that StarCraft gives you that a lot of other games don't necessarily give you. I think you can get better in all the other games as well, but in StarCraft it like hits you in the face because it's so impossible to play perfect that you make so many mistakes. I think that gives me the feeling that I always want to get better, and then eventually the pro gaming just happened to be a side part of it. Like I didn't want to become a pro gamer ever, it just kind of happened to be.
Sure.
And then I was happy to do it because I got to do what I love.
Yeah.
Basically for money, so yeah.
Yeah. Is there a specific moment where it felt like it started to feel like a career?
I guess the first time I was paid a salary, which would be a very low salary back then. But yeah, the first time a team asked me about joining them for a very low amount of salary. There I don't think I thought that I was ever going to become a full-time pro or something like that, but that's the first time I ever got the feeling that something in that direction could happen. There's also a story back then that the guy, I think back then there was NVIDIA Cups or something like that, like Zotac Cups I think they were called. And I was on the leaderboard in the top something of the monthly listing, but there was only a single tournament played, and I got like walkovers. It's the only reason I was there. I wasn't even Grandmaster, but he saw me and he saw that I was German and he saw that I was young. So he approached me, and since I got paid, I had even more strive to improve, and then I instantly got Grandmaster like a couple of weeks later for the first time. So yeah, that's how it happened.
Makes sense. I mean, it's very funny that that's how it really happened, but that doesn't quite make sense. But yeah. So is there a specific moment from your career that stands out as like the most significant win? I beat this person, I placed this, is there something that comes back to your memory often?
I think the things that come back to my memory the most often are the biggest losses of my career, not so much the wins. I think the only time I really won a tournament was the German championship. But yeah, I think what sticks with me the most are the losses, because a lot of them were like, whenever I lose, it tends to be, especially late into the tournaments, it tends to be super close series. And most of the time, I also end up throwing, because I'm generally much better in planning, strategy. So usually my early game is good, and then I end up throwing because the other guy is mechanically better than me, or I make a bad decision. So for me, what struck with me the most was the grand finals against Serral when I lost 4-3. And I was winning the last game pretty hard. And also there was like an EPS where I lost to Hanfi. That one made me really sad as well.
That was a 2018 DreamHack?
No, that was... So against Serral, I also had two semifinals, and one of the semifinals against Serral was super close. It was in Montreal.
Yeah.
But the grand finals I'm talking about was a Chinese tournament. It was an online event back then. I think it was during COVID.
Okay.
But yeah, that was the first international event where I actually made it to the grand finals. And I got to show, man, I can plan out a best of 7. Like I was waiting my entire career for this. And then I end up playing the sickest strat in the last game. It gets me ahead. It works perfectly exactly like I wanted to. And then I think my heart rate is so high that my hands don't do what I tell them to, and I mess up the fight completely, and I end up losing.
Yeah, I think it's something you see a lot, especially against somebody like Serral who never crumbles like that, who, will pretty much always stay, on task. I think you're not the only person that...
I mean, he's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I looked at the heart rate today when he was playing. The guy is playing a late game. He's 80 heart rate. Then he's in game 5 against Rainer. His all-in fails. He's completely dead, and his heart rate is still at like 80 or 90. Completely crazy. I don't understand how he does it. Honestly, no clue.
There was multiple times where he would be at like 100, 110, and then he would take a terrible engagement, goes out to like 90. Very, very confusing. I don't. He finds some kind of calmness within himself, or what? I don't know.
Maybe if you win so many tournaments, because I remember when he won his first BlizzCon, he was very nervous back then. He was visibly shaking because I was talking with him back then between every single series. So I would go over strategies and stuff with him. Like he always just he basically told me what his plans were, and I was like, okay, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Pretty much stuff like that, just bouncing ideas off each other. And then he was visibly shaking, especially after the win as well. He was nervous back then, so I guess it also comes with experience, and also if you basically win everything for 5 years straight, I think that's maybe it makes
we'll give you
sense.
some kind of confidence. Yeah. So I think there's been a couple different points in your career where you seem to be an emerging talent within the European scene. I think people maybe had expectations for yourself as well, but it hasn't quite materialized, right? You haven't really had a dominant period. Why do you think that is? What do you think holds you back from hitting those upper echelons?
I think so. I think mechanically I didn't practice correctly. Basically, when I was younger, I think that makes a big difference. So my mechanics are not quite on par from multitasking and stuff like that, and that's super important with Zerg. Also, I get extremely nervous, and I tend to make bad decisions when it matters the most. I do think back when I was not considered very good, but I had a run where I got like top 3 DreamHack, top 3 Home Story Cup, and then top 3 DreamHack again. Yeah. And I felt super good. And I had like a natural confidence about me, which I'm lacking ever since. The year after, I wasn't as motivated anymore. I think I have some, like you said, I have some stronger periods, some weaker periods, but I tend to be a bit of a choker, which if I say it out loud, it happens even more, obviously. Like, this is a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it happens to be that way. Like even in this tournament, I think against Bian I was winning game 3. Against Hero Marine, I was most certainly also winning game 3. And I just mess up the micro. Like I'm not quite there in the most important moments, and that probably hurts me. But the overall reason, I think the biggest reason, is that my skill set, which I developed the most, is I watch literally every single StarCraft game. So I'm very good about strategizing. But right now, StarCraft is more mechanical. And that's also why usually the same players, they stay the best because they practice the best way. They practice very hard and they practice the correct way when they were younger, and then they stay at that certain level. And I haven't reached that level ever, basically.
A few do, right? Yeah, it's only a handful of guys that tend to hit there. I think there's a couple other players in the same period, like at Laser, Showtime, who also, Showtime did reach some peaks there, but who looked also to be, possible to emerge as a major talent, especially after Neeb had that run in 2017. Obviously, nobody knew what Serral was going to do after that. So I think, there was a time period there where yourself and a couple of these other guys looked to be, maybe the next big thing. And obviously, it ended up being Yona. But yeah, it's definitely a very interesting thing. And I think currently we're actually, though, over the last few months have seen, not a huge shakeup, but I think Classic emerging at the tip top of the scene again is not something, that we necessarily knew was going to happen. Being able to take series off of Serral and ZVP is near impossible, right? What do you think accounts for that? Is it the patch or what?
Okay, so I do think Protoss is good right now, both against Terran as well as against Zerg, and I do think it helps. I also think Protoss is a little bit different than the other races, where Zerg and Terran is like purely, it's a little bit more mechanical than Protoss. I do also think that if you just practice a ton, you can get up your skill level a little bit. Even if you're already basically, you think you plateau, you max out. If you practice a lot, you can always get better. Even at a more advanced age, like Classic is also maybe 30 or something. I don't know how old he is. But I think it is possible to elevate your skill to a level where you can break out and get into like the top 8 or so. But I don't think Classic is ever going to get at the level where Clem and Serral are just purely mechanically. I think that is like basically impossible. I think you need to put so much time in, and you need to practice the right way. Like if I could go back in time, I'm 100% sure that I could also become someone like a Serral and a Clem, knowing what I know now of how to practice, how to play the game. Like Serral, when he was younger, he would play, even when Zerg sucked in late game, he would play late games. He would run around with Roach Burrow movement all the time, even when he was still worse. Yeah. Clem would always play just multitasking heavy style, stuff like that. So they perfected those skills.
Sure.
It's very difficult to do that at an older age, but it is possible to even get better at that. So I think Classic probably put a lot of time in, a lot of work in, and it shows.
One point to the mindset that I meant to mention before was, I was talking to Rogue earlier, right? And I asked him, did you ever think you'd have the opportunity to compete in a world championship again after your military service? And he was just like, yeah, I figured I would always make it back here. And I think that has a lot, when we talk about the mentality of champions, right? Of believing that you can win, even if it's statistically unlikely or something along those lines. I think that it does have a really big impact on results.
Yeah. Obviously for him, the baseline was also there, right? He was really, really, really good before. So I think getting back up to that level is more likely than someone completely new becoming super good at an older age. Let's say someone goes to the army in Korea and he comes back and he's 29, and beforehand he was maybe like a round of 32 player, not a world champion.
Yeah.
If that guy then says, okay, I'm going to become a world champion, I would like to see that.
Yeah.
That would be crazy because that would be nuts. But Rogue obviously was super good beforehand.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, there's been a resurgence of Korean, not quite dominance, but a resurgence of Koreans at the top of the scene where, for a number of years we had Europeans, namely Serral and Clem and Rainer, taking, lots of tournaments. But we've seen, a couple tournaments now captured by Koreans. Why do you think that is? Do you think that the Koreans could retake the sort of dominant position within the community that they had before?
I think Koreans always have a dominant position, just it's not the top. I think the best two players in the world right now are still Serral and Clem, and then Maru's kind of there as well. But I think it's probably going to remain similar to that, honestly. I think they got a little bit lucky, honestly. I think Yona was off a bit, and in Dallas probably is what you're talking about, right? And Clem played literally the worst series I've ever seen him play in the last 3 years combined. So I don't think we're going to see that every single time. I think the favorites will remain the same. But I would still say that Korea is dominating because they have more top players. So it's easier for them to practice. They also have, they have a great talent pool of players like below the super, super top level, which we don't quite have in Europe and America.
Yeah, it seems like the Korean scene's still a little bit deeper if they're not quite peaking.
It is deeper. But I would imagine if anything, it goes the other way because we have more young talent in Europe, yeah.
For sure. When you talk about up-and-coming players, who comes to the top of your mind?
For me, instantly, it's Gigi Machine, a very young Russian Zerg player. I think he's mechanically sound, and he also plays pretty solid stuff. Like usually Russian Zergs, you tend to all in a lot, but he doesn't really do that. He plays very standard, mechanically sound. Also, Arok Fire from France, Protoss player, that's also very good. Young Yakov, I guess I would still count him as up and coming as well. Yeah. They put a lot of time in. I guess somewhat Cristiano. He's been around now for a while, but he also puts a lot of time in. I think the winning formula is if you're young, like if it's a young player, and they also still, I can see that drive that they do want to improve. They queue the ladder 24/7. I think So for me, it's those four, and then maybe from Korea, Percival. I'm not sure how old he is, but he seems to be getting a lot better. I also practiced Korea coming up to this event, and he seemed quite strong, honestly, a lot better than 1 year ago.
Hanmono also said that Percival has been improving very rapidly. So I'm curious, I didn't think we would ever really see a new face from the Korean scene, so that would be pretty cool if he could emerge,
that would be great.
As a significant talent. There's a lot of negativity around StarCraft. There has been a lot of negativity around StarCraft for 10 years, more even. And we have persisted to this point. If events like EWC go away, do you think the replacements that we've seen vis-a-vis Star Zagora, the persistence of Homestery Cup, the Parisian tournament that was just announced, Daryl's tournament in Krakow, perhaps some Chinese lands, do you think this smattering of 10 to 15K tournaments is enough to sustain the drive of high-level SC2 players?
I think yes, of some, but not of all of them, for sure. I think there's going to be a bunch of people that then will go on to the next chapter of their lives because it's not sustainable to have that as your job because it's simply not enough money. And it's also not attractive for the teams in that case. So you're also getting less of a salary, obviously. So no, I think there would be a bunch of players that will retire, but there's always going to be a scene. I think the game is simply the best strategy game right now out there.
Yeah.
It's awesome to play. It's super fun. I think there's going to be a bunch of programmers always, and there's going to be a scene. How exactly it looks, I can't tell you. I think it's going to be smaller, but yeah, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, honestly.
Yeah, there's so many question marks. I think
the most damage that has been done to the scene is these periods of not knowing, right? I think
that sucks.
I think that hurts the players more than anything else.
I mean, yeah, we straight up after most players didn't play for like months after EWC because we didn't know if there was going to be another one.
Yeah.
Some Koreans returned to like a normal life, and then they were like, okay, I kind of prefer pro gaming, and then they started grinding the ladder again.
Yeah.
And that was actually a lot of players, so most of them took some time off. There's only a bunch of them that actually do keep playing just for the online cups, like the weeklies and stuff like that.
Beyond and a few others.
Yeah, Clem, Max, Specs, those guys.
Yeah.
And it was exactly those guys as well that then also improved. Like you can see it. Even the guys that practiced during the off-season. For example, Trigger improved a lot.
Yeah.
And Shin improved a lot. Those two were grinding the entire time, whereas everybody else kind of took a break. Everybody else returned to their normal skill, but they elevated their skill a bit.
Yeah, Trigger's rise has been unbelievable, you know? I mean, he was a bit of a shaky player a year and a half, 2 years ago, and these days he's looking great. Didn't have the most amazing performance here, but the caliber of player is also, quite high.
Yeah, he also still needs to get some experience in these types of tournaments. I don't think he plays many preparation tournaments, and with this much money on the line against like only top players, it's a different environment than I think what he's used to.
For certain. And Oliveira straight up said that's why he retired, right?
Yeah.
Like without any kind of persistence within the community. Now, talking about the Chinese scene, obviously we did have this sort of match fixing scandal that has kind of been forgotten about, I think, pretty quickly here with the expulsion of Firefly from the event. Have you followed that at all? I
have followed it, yeah. I mean, to me, it looked pretty damning.
Yeah.
So I do think there's some foul play over there.
Yeah.
And it happened, and I'm glad he got punished for it.
Sure.
I'm glad they looked into it, because I would have felt very bad about him attending this event with all the info that we got.
And one thing that also is pretty troubling, but it's very difficult to dig into, is how pervasive it is within the community there, because Xiaosa on the SE Boy forum just after this news sort of broke, posted some pretty heartfelt stuff about how he's poured his life into supporting the Chinese amateur scene. And apparently, like the day before this story broke, he had a meeting with NetEase about bringing the servers back for China.
Oh.
And that apparently, I'm not sure if they were aware of it, but he was aware of it, and it kind of hurt his morale. And yeah, I don't know. I fear that there might be more there. He implied that there was more there.
There's a good possibility. I don't know. The Chinese scene is kind of detached from the foreign scene, so it's difficult to know. I think it's a big scene as well, so it makes me really sad because the Chinese fans, whenever I was over there, they're super passionate for the game. They cheer, like they're the loudest fans by far from anyone. Louder than the Americans even, which the American crowd already always goes wild, but the Chinese fans are crazy cool to play in front of. So it makes me very sad because I think they have a lot of passion for StarCraft over there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it just sucks from the players that committed.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it sucks for all that. I think it sucks even worse, right, for the guys who didn't do any of this stuff, right? Who have been, pouring their heart and soul into it. But I think that's about what I have prepared for you. Thank you so much for taking the time, man. Do you have any closing words?
Well, I want to shout out my girlfriend, because leading up to this event, I was practicing my hard out probably for the last 3 months straight, and she kind of carried at home. So I just want to shout her out because I kind of planned to do this after I advanced, and then I threw both times. So I figured let's at least do it here.
Yeah.
So shout out to my girlfriend. Shout out also to my team, obviously, for supporting me throughout. I really appreciate it.
For sure. Well, I'm glad we were able to get the consolation shout out.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this one, be sure to leave a like and a comment down below. Get subscribed so you don't miss out on future releases like this one. If you really enjoy what I do here, consider supporting me on Patreon. The link is in the video description. That's all for now, my friends. Until next time.